about just work and everything. So I guess we'll kind of get into you and your background. Why don't you kind of tell us, a little bit about yourself, how you got started, and eventually worked your way into, becoming CEO and on the board of Scripps.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm from a first-generation college graduate family. My dad worked in a factory in Norwood, Ohio, his whole career, really. And my mother worked as a teacher's aide when she went back after we got a little bit older. But I came out of a lower middle class background. The idea of being in the media business seemed very foreign, but I loved news. So even as a little kid, I read the Enquirer and the Post, which were the two newspapers in Cincinnati, cover to cover, and just loved current events and just all the texture and the storytelling that came out of journalism. And then was also and continued to be a very strong supporter of free speech and of press freedoms. And so all that's just sort of played right into it. So I wanted to be a journalist, and but had trouble in school, struggled through some of high school. I really had a very hard time, and then struggled in college for quite a while. Colleges asked me to leave. Very smart on their part.
Yeah, we've got that in the notes. We were going to bring it up. If you didn't bring it up yourself.
Yeah, sure. But I just loved my academic strength was math.
Wow.
But I love the storytelling of it. Just being able to explain to people really what's going on and where's the irony, and where's the conflict and the confusion in events or stories. And so that's what I just loved it and still do. I'm still just, every day I read endless numbers of publications and websites and some of my favorite YouTubers. And
what are your main channels of getting information these days?
Yeah, so I sort of look at it this way. Who actually generates any real content and facts? And then everybody else just uses it all day long, right? Just junk. But the people who really generate content that everything else is built on is the Associated Press. And I was a director of the AP for 10 years. The BBC, Reuters, Wall Street Journal is terrific. The Economist. So you have those sort of at the top. And then I read the Daily Mail every day. I don't know if you've ever seen the Daily Mail or the New York Post.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
They're so different than, say, the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. They don't preach to a crowd. They speak from the crowd. And they just, reflect so well their audiences. Very different than what you'd see The Economist and the Daily Mail could not be more different.
Right.
But I really respect how they both generate real content that then all the cable news networks and most of the bloggers and everybody else then just takes what they produce and just does all their jabber with it the rest of the day. So those are the ones I follow, but
you see a lot of fake thing.
It's rampant.
Instagram, I'm sure. That's the main platform that a lot of our generation uses to get news, and you'll just see stuff that's like an out of context quote, or just now it's AI generated. But
yes. Yeah.
How do you kind of avoid falling into those traps? And
you can't. I mean, if you're hooked in, right? If you have a smartphone and you use Instagram or something else, there's no way to avoid it. There's no way to block it. You have to be discerning and sort of understand it. And you're in a world now where everybody has to be their own editor. Very, very different than the world that I started in professionally. But being a free speech lunatic, I'll take the chaos.
Yeah.
I get invited now to speak to groups that 10, 15, 20 years ago I was aggressively pushing the internet, social media, and they invite me now to say, "Hey, how's it going, Rich? How you like it now?" All that crap you advocated for, look at what it's done to our country and our world. But it's free speech. So it used to be, in a market like Cincinnati, if you had a story, you were interested in, or a project or an event, you came and you begged me to do a story. I mean, literally, I was the gatekeeper because it was 3 TV stations and a newspaper.
Right.
Today, that's just absurd, right? You build your own network.
Yeah.
You know, it's just...
Or post something on YouTube or
That's right.
TikTok and just do like quick little reporting from your phone.
Or if you have,
I love that.
Yeah, or if you have a story worth telling and news stations pick up on it, then they're coming to you and it's the exact opposite.
Yes. Yeah. So the instigator is very different.
Yes.
I love that. I often tell college students, I say, you know, there was a day when if you wanted to sell a $100 bicycle, you had to buy a $75 ad from us. And that was good eating for us, right? That was classified advertising, was fabulous. Today, that's just absurd, right? You have Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace, and you know, really the economics have returned to the audience. That's really where the leverage is today. Most of my career, we had the leverage. Now, leverage is just spread across the entire planet.
When did that change? Is that just with the rise of the internet?
With the digital revolution.
Yeah.
So to me, printed newspapers, TV stations off of towers, that was all just warm up until the digital grid could be assembled around the world. You know, and so to me, that was all just warm up, and now it's real, right? I mean, you can communicate with somebody, you know, living in some country you've never heard of, and you can have a relationship with them. That's phenomenal. Never in human history has it been like this.
It's kind of like when, like you said, like it was just building up to this moment. It's like when you put all the Christmas lights on and then you plug it in, National Lampoon's Family Vacation, they all come on at once, and now it's like everything's communicating rapidly.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still in a very experimental stage, and most of your adult lives will be working through this. But still, would I go back to the way it was, where there were a few gatekeepers? No way. It's just too incredible.
Yeah, I love your perspective on it, because in our generation, at least, you know, in my friends and the people I talk to, and part of my job as a financial advisor is obviously I read the Wall Street Journal every day. I'm keeping up with all of that. And sometimes I find it quite exhausting. And my friends do too. And they're like, when you're constantly turned on to the news, it's so chaotic and it seems like there's so much bad going on in the world. And it almost, like, we talk about it, it's like, it's kind of depressing sometimes. Like it's cynical, it's chaotic, and it kind of, you know, might raise your anxiety levels a little bit. Where do you find the love in it? Because you can tell you truly do love reading the news. You love everything about it.
I just so passionately believe that everybody's voice matters. And in today's world, you can raise that voice. Yeah. You know, it used to be I had to discover you. I had to feel like you deserve to be heard. You know, and that was so much of our mantra, that what we did in our business was unearthing those voices that deserve to be heard. Yeah. And today, I happen upon them just like you guys do, right? Sure. You know, in many cases, they're already out there. Right. It's just you're early in just a phenomenal experiment. And I don't know how it's going to come out. Yeah.
Is there anything that scares you about how easy it is to get all of these different opinions and extreme imagery? Like the way, like I try to stay away from the real graphic stuff, but I know it's out there on Instagram and X, and like what's kind of like the downside of maybe this rapid?
Well, there are lots of downsides. I mean, it's a lot of it's not real, and it's only going to get worse. Although I hope the default will become that in your generation, things you'll see, you won't go, oh no, daggone, you know, I'm never voting for him. You know, in your generation, the default will be, I don't know if it's real or not. You know, and it'll be a very different kind of default position for you guys to just say, oh, I don't know. Maybe it is. I'll do some research, but I'm not going to let it bother me.
You mentioned
very different.
Yeah, you mentioned unearthing the voices that need to be heard, and the one thing I think of is like everyone. You know, we talked about the digital revolution, how everyone has all of this access to all of this information and has the ability to raise their voice, which is amazing for free speech. What do you think about the mantra of keyboard warriors? And if you don't know the mantra, it's, you know, they sit behind a keyboard all day. They they say their opinion, and, you know, a lot of it now is anonymous. You know, they
made up names.
Yeah, made up names, right? Aliases, bots.
You don't even know if it's a person behind the keyboard.
But there's no consequences behind the words that they say. And for me, feel like that could be dangerous. I was curious to hear your thoughts.
Yes, that's definitely a downside. But hopefully people will become more discerning, and not see something on Instagram and go get their pitchforks and their torches,
right?
And march on somebody's house.
Sure.
Hopefully that we're in that phase right now, but hopefully that goes away over time as people become more discerning. Or just like the machines have created the bots and everything else, and then everything through AI. Maybe the next step is machinery that is discerning and helps you sort that. Navigation and discoverability is still a huge challenge, in media today, but it's early.
Yeah.
But I remember when, and this goes back several administrations, the president of Iran, they put up a website and you could email him. And I'm trying to remember, I can't remember his name. So I emailed him. He never emailed back.
It's Mossadegh, like way back in the
This
day?
would be 20 years ago.
Okay, so
And it was a kind of a sort of a moderation. But he never.
Did you ask him when you emailed him?
I can't remember what I was asking about. Something that was going on, or just
to get like information from the source.
I think I mostly wanted to see if he would email me back, or if somebody would.
Yeah.
And nobody ever did. But I was just so stunned by that. It was just such a phenomenal change, a turning point in human history.
Let's see. The president of Iran from 2005 to 2013 was Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. I don't know how to say it. Okay, that's him. It.
And he was a moderate.
Okay.
And the Ayatollah would have still, like the former one, would have been around there too.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
He probably was still alive.
Because he was from like the revolution. Right. Anyway,
yeah,
that's interesting. I only know I actually am reading. Greg gifted me. This is a side note, but Greg gifted me Argo, which is like a story about.
Have you seen the movie?
I haven't seen the movie yet.
Oh gosh, it's great.
I'm going to read the book and then watch the movie.
Yeah.
I think I don't even know if the book was written and then adapted into the movie. I think the book might have just been written to tell the story.
Yeah,
along with the movie, it seems like it's
a great story.
But yeah, and then I did a little bit of research and
they're
very interesting.
The other thing that happened interesting along the way, I got an email from a guy named Rich Boehne. He said, "Hey, I'm getting some of your email," and it turns out there was another Rich Boehne, and he ran the weather station in Antarctica for the U.S. government.
That's so cool.
And we built a relationship.
No way.
He retired ahead of me.
Powered partnership.
Yeah, that is a power partnership.
It was just so interesting. I would get some of his email. He was getting stuff that was supposed to go to me.
That's hilarious.
And it's just the things that are just in the new world, right? So yeah, I still love it. You're seeing the worst of it right now in the midterm primaries.
Yes.
Just an awful lot of what we all see each day. It's either half true or half lie, one or the other. Sometimes both.
Right.
But
is it even worth, like, sometimes I'll see a news thing, right, and I'll send it to Bachman and be like, "This is crazy." Is it even worth doing that, knowing that I might just be spreading misinformation? Because I don't want to be a vessel of,
I don't know.
I
don't know if it matters to you.
It's hard.
It's interesting, or it would be to somebody else.
Like, I see something cool and I'm like, look what they just did in the Great
Barrier
Reef,
and
then
every day.
Bachman will be like, "Awesome, man."
Yeah.
It's like, then you look down, it's like an AI generated video of a Great Barrier Reef has been circulating. You're like, I'm sorry, my bad.
Well, I mean, we just did it with Kevin O'Leary's data center or whatever in Utah
right?
That he's building or something.
I think
like
that is real though.
That is real, but. Yeah,
I hope and pray you guys don't look back 25 years ago from now and say, "You remember we talked with Rich Boehne and how things have turned out so much worse than we ever thought." I hope that's not the case. But
yeah, I mean,
for those of us like me who are very strong advocates for what we see today.
Well, I think you said it best. Is it really comes down to the discernment of human beings and what they're willing to do with the information and how they're willing to act on the information. It's not, the information isn't the weapon. It's people. It's how people discern that information, act on that information. And I guess maybe the spread of misinformation is also, wrapped in there. But yeah, we guess we just have to hope for the best of humanity.
Well, or you guys get your arms around it.
Yeah.
Your generation.
Adapt.
Yeah. I launched the chaos. Now you guys can figure out how to get your arms around.
You've got to have. I think it's so important. I've recently really gotten into journalism. Like I said, like it's become such a big part of my daily routine, and I love staying up on current events because there's just so many unique things to learn and hear them from like the sources.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a vital aspect of life, but like everything these days, like it's kind of a horse, an untamed horse, a little bit.
That's right.
Yeah.
I just always come down on the free speech, open, free, bare naked free speech. I think is defeats many evils. So
yes,
I'll put up with the messiness at least for now.
Right.
You keep saying free speech. Did you happen to follow the Afro Man story?
Yes. Watch some of the documentaries.
Awesome, yeah.
What a great story.
That was super fun. I thought he was really funny too. I was watching a lot of interviews.
I'm not familiar with the story.
Oh, you got to watch.
The rapper Afro Man of Colt 45 fame.
Yes, I know.
He basically had a situation. He lives in
Adams County,
Adams
right?
County, Ohio, so like outskirts of Cincinnati.
No way.
Yes,
He does?
Yeah.
And wait, what? How did I not know this?
And the police raided his house on like claims of narcotics and like kidnapping, and they found nothing. And he had all these house cameras, and he took videos, and then he was using the videos to make diss tracks. And he was like rapping about how like they broke his door, and he's like, "Are you gonna come back and pay for my door?" And then he was like, one of them was like a little bigger, and he had some lemon pound cake on the counter, and he was like, I know you saw that lemon pound cake. Why don't you grab yourself a slice?" He was making fun of him.
That's hilarious.
And then they sued him for defamation.
What?
And he was like, "You broke into my house.
Right.
You broke my door, my gate, and all I did was make a fun little rap track. That's how I make my money."
Right.
And basically he won this court case against the Adams County Police Department.
No way.
And it was just a big victory. There's a picture of him in like this white fur coat with an all-American flag suit, and it's just like the symbol of free speech this year so far, I would say.
No way.
It's a
I
really
hadn't
fun
heard
story.
anything about that.
If you
story.
read about
That's
it,
so sick.
it breaks some new ground. Because who owns that content that was taped inside his house? The argument was, I don't know if he owns that. They were arguing. It was a law enforcement action, and I don't know.
Yeah.
So it was a fascinating legal argument. Who owns that?
Yeah, I didn't get that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That
was a great story.
What was the precedent set, or what was the ruling on?
Went in his favor.
So did they say like if is like now the current?
I think that's we're going to see that in many, many courts, going forward in the next few years. Who owns that content that's created inside of a house like that?
Cool. Yeah, it was for fun, but also important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was also going to ask, did you have any journalism heroes growing up? I know like Walter Cronkite or Hunter S. Thompson back in the day.
Yeah, Hunter S. Thompson. Yeah, so I grew up in that generation where, like I said, I read both papers.
Okay.
Post was in the afternoon, the Inquirer came in the morning. So I looked at both of those. And you really just had the three big networks, CBS, ABC, and NBC. And Walter Cronkite was really kind of the voice.
Right.
But what's so interesting, everybody now talks about those being the good old days, and when journalism was balanced and people were thoughtful. In reality, that was a very brief period. The norm is much more what we see today. So if you go back before the Second World War, let's say, in every city there were all kinds of newspapers: Republican, Democrat, Communist, German, African American, and they all told the same stories through a very different lens. That's exactly where we are today. So that period where it was, everybody said, well, back when everything was balanced and middle of the road, that was actually a pretty brief period. And now I think we're back to what it looked like with what they called yellow journalism in the 1920s in the newspapers, and the pamphlets that went out during the Revolution. And
was yellow journalism where they would like exaggerate stories?
Yeah, and that came out of, I guess they used a yellowish paper.
Okay.
But yeah, that was the idea.
That William
the
Randolph
tabloids.
Hearst.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hearst, Pulitzer, Scripps, they were three of the big barons at the beginning.
Yeah, so it was kind of fragmented, localized, merged together, and then now it's become, since everyone's got an instant voice, it's naturally kind of become...
It's back to where we were times 1,000. You know, it's just
fragmented again beyond repair.
But that idea that you know, everybody should just be completely balanced, not political or not favoring. That was a brief period. That wasn't the norm.
It reminds me of that like old adage where like you break a china plate and you tape it back together once, like, but if you like, you know, smash it again, it's no going back.
Yeah.
And it's almost like that same thing where it was, you know, it was fragmented. It got taped back together for a period of time. And then now it's just smashed beyond repair. There's no going back with the digital age. Yeah.
I mean, it all aggravates me. I'm a reasonably active commenter on Instagram and on Facebook.
Okay.
Mostly because I'm for the most part, a very long time independent. So I love to go in and say, so y'all actually believe this? I'm kind of stunned. That
challenge reason.
Yeah.
Right.
Challenge their reasoning, I should say.
As if I'm doing any good, right? But
hey, you got to at least do it for yourself, you know? You got to get to sleep at night.
Sometimes I do it for sport.
Right.
That's what aggravates my wife.
Competitive commenting.
Yeah, she'll say, why did you say that to them? I said, well, it just looked right. I couldn't resist.
Trolling on social media. That's funny.
You just feel like I got
I love it. I love it.
Did you have a favorite story or project that you worked on over the years?
I just can't even. So many. I think when I was at UC one night, I talked about, you know, journalists, or at least it used to be. There aren't as many journalists as there used to be, but you know, most people live their lives in a very narrow band of society. You kind of in your zone. And journalists, kind of like nurses or doctors, I guess, see the incredible highs in our society, the most amazing people who do unbelievable things, acts of kindness, heroics. At the same time, the next day or that afternoon, you see just the most desperate, horrible, unbelievable side of humanity. And just the opportunity to see that range. I was telling somebody not long ago, this sounds odd that I say I like to interview murderers. I didn't like interviewing murderers, but to sit like this and talk to somebody who's done horrific things and look in their eyes and try to figure out what could have motivated this person. I just thought that was just incredible experiences. And on the other end, you know, the peak of my career, I covered Wall Street, and you know, and so I got to go to. I did White House press and economic briefings. I was credentialed on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, the Merrill Lynch trading floor. You know, all those. I used to be able to just walk onto the floors before 9/11. Yeah. If you were credentialed.
Sure.
And talk to traders and. I've met most of the presidents since Carter, I guess.
Wow.
It's just one of the privileges of being in that business.
Being in the industry.
Met just unbelievable people.
That's awesome. Like you said, highs and lows. What kind of like taste has that left in your mouth about humanity as a whole?
Well, that it's. I think what worries me, like worries many, we're increasingly in a world of haves and have-nots. Mm-hmm. And, you know, those of us who grew up in America post Second World War, you know, grew up in a boom and a growth and that enormous middle class. So my father worked in a factory, and we had a middle class kind of life, very small house, but, you know, paid the bills, had 2 used cars, went camping. Mm-hmm. You know, it was good. And that same factory today, most of it's gone. And the person who owned it at the time, a few years later, I walked around with him one day, and he said, you know, look around. Very different than when your father was here. You know, because I can't afford to pay. You know, I've got foreign competition. You know, I can't pay workers like I used to. And if you look around, it's different than your dad. Yeah, I was really sad. You know, but the real reality. I think I've got many favorite stories. One of my favorite stories that I wrote was a guy who got laid off from U.S. Shoe. U.S. Shoe used to be a big company here, very big company. Made shoes, obviously.
Figured.
And this guy retired, I guess, and a lot of shoe manufacturing was moving overseas. So he took all of his savings and bought used shoemaking equipment, and found this building in New Richmond. You know where New Richmond is, up the river? It was a empty factory kind of place. He and his wife moved their shoemaking equipment into this enormous building, and they were just determined, we're going to try to rebuild American-made shoes. They didn't have a chance of making it.
No.
And he had one leg. He was a veteran, and they just put everything they had into it. And so I walk in there, and it's just a few machines and the two of them in this enormous building, and they're trying to take on the world. And it was just fantastic. We ran it on a Thanksgiving Day in the paper.
That's awesome.
I loved it. Just, the opportunity to find and talk to people like that.
Yeah.
It's just, so many other professions, you don't have that opportunity.
That's kind of why we started this.
That's
to
the whole
find
point.
Interesting people. Like what an odd thing to do,
There's so many.
To create your own shoe company. But
right. Yeah.
You love to just see what the passion that guy has for.
Yeah, I did all kinds. I did a great story out in Adams. I think it's in Adams County, a small community, and a woman had a hairdressing shop. And one day in this little town, I'm trying to remember which town it is out there near Chillicothe, the water went out. They had a little municipal water system, and it went down. Mm-hmm. So she had put some kind of treatment on this woman's hair, and then the water went out. They couldn't get it rinsed out, so it burned the woman's scalp and stuff. And so she was suing. She didn't know who to sue. Do I sue the owner of the hair salon, or do I sue the city?
Right.
And it was just a great story with characters. Trying to figure out who got screwed here. Yeah. Somebody did.
Right. Dealing with those different personalities. Did you ever pick up on a lot of soft skills that you wouldn't have had without journalism, and what were some of those skills that you...
Well, I'd hope to think maybe I had those soft skills and they worked. Mm-hmm. I'm extremely patient. Extremely patient. I can, wait and listen. I think I'm a good listener. I'm very empathetic. I don't... and I was always determined to never do somebody wrong. So it's... I don't know whether soft skills I had. Definitely listening and being patient and respecting people. Basic human respect.
Just the basic,
and people pick up on that. If you're in their house or you're in their office, they can tell whether you respect them or not.
Yeah, one of the greatest quotes I ever came across in person was from my high school teacher, and he said, "Just because you disagree with someone doesn't mean you have to disrespect them."
Right.
And I think a big part of journalism, especially, when you're actually being the active journalist, is doing just exactly that, is no matter whose perspective it is and whether you agree with it or not, is just giving the person the time of day and showing up. And I think it makes a big difference, and people are grateful for it.
And I think that was somewhat I brought to leadership at Scripps. Scripps has got one of those very strong basic human respect cultures. Mm-hmm. So at least in the company I ran, the quickest way to get thrown out was to find out that you spoke poorly to a server in a restaurant.
Wow.
Or you treated other people badly in the office or customers, or that you were arrogant and difficult, and we'd throw you out. I'd throw you out with glee.
Right.
I mean, we just didn't need people like that.
That's great. I mean, you want people that treat others with respect as your coworkers.
And you want people who are mission-minded. Mm-hmm. People who are mission-minded, you get 150, 180%. People who are just mercenaries, they'll barely give you 100% of their time and their efforts.
You were the CEO of Scripps for how long?
I was the CEO for 9 years.
Okay. What goes into creating and formulating a culture at an organization or a company?
Right. Many companies do it with a bunch of consultants. Yeah. You're a different kind of consultant.
Yeah.
Culture consultants, and we didn't approach it that way. I think we just approached it as, this is the way we do business. And and I spent a lot of time on the road visiting not just customers, but all of our folks, and to build that culture.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we had a very strong mission culture, also a very strong entrepreneur culture. I mean, Scripps is really just almost a couple hundred years of entrepreneurs is really just what it is. And that's highly honored. So it was, that kind of stuff. And I was an entrepreneur, and that really made a difference in my career at Scripps. But as I always said as CEO, I said, look, I want a place where people can go from worst to first. The idea that there's an ordained class that comes into a company, like the pipeline to Harvard or wherever, and they come in and they'll go into the program, and someday one of them will be CEO. I hate that. Just can't stand it. So I always wanted a company where, as I said, you could go from worst to first, as pretty much I did, and my predecessor did as well.
Yeah, and I was hoping, so can we almost unfold how you became the CEO of Scripps, and really your worst to first story? Starting, I know you mentioned college and they asked you to leave.
Right.
It's
because I got Fs.
Yeah.
I flunked classes. That was
that's what we were briefed on. A number of times, correct?
Yeah, several times.
So we were curious, what kept you going? Yeah.
Yeah, when you flunked out the first time, and it was NKU, correct? Yeah. What was going through your head? What made you determined to keep trying and come back again?
Well, I think I went initially, I probably should not have gone right out of high school. It's not just men, but a 17, 18, 19-year-old boy is like a bottle rocket with a broken stick off of it, right? You just never know where it's going to... You light it, but who knows where it's going to go.
Sure.
Still kind of like that at 24.
Yeah, I feel I'm not too far off.
But I didn't, first time or so, I didn't think much about it at all. I was your typical somewhat out of control, late teenager. I had really struggled in high school, struggled to learn. I struggled to learn to read when I was in elementary school. And today I think schools take better care of students like me. Back then, not quite so much. So I just was not well prepared. I had no orientation around what it meant to go to college. I didn't have generational. So it just, I flunked out and then came back. So you had to sit out one semester, I think. Came back, same routine again. Was asked to leave again. So that went on for quite a while. And then in my early 20s, I was working odd jobs, and at one point, cleaning restrooms in a YMCA. Not there's nothing wrong with that. It's good, honest work. But I'm looking in a mirror thinking, I'm now into my 20s. What do I want to do? I think I need to dig out of this hole. So it was sheer terror. Thinking, oh my gosh, I only live once, and I've dug a pretty nasty hole. So that was and I think I grew up, I came to understand my learning style easier. So when I convinced NKU, nobody else would admit me. And NKU gave me another chance under a contract, saying if you don't keep these grades at this level, you'll never be back.
Yeah.
So then I repeated F's and D's for several semesters, just all F's and D's, and was on the dean's list at the same time because I was turning an F into an A, but I was still on probation and on the dean's list, and dug my way back out. What breaks my heart is so many students don't. I mean that first 2 years is rough. They wanted to be an accountant, or they wanted to be something, and they've gotten so off the rails that they have a hard time being willing to work their way back.
Yeah. What was when you kind of had to hit that maybe rock bottom moment, and you're like, I need to start getting back and living the life I want to live? Did you hatch a plan, or what did you go to get you back on track? Well,
again, I think it started with sheer terror, thinking, oh no, what's going to happen? Can I dig my way out of this, or have I set myself on a different path? So just that strong desire to, get back. And I still wanted to be a journalist. And in journalism, it really often doesn't matter what your degree's in, but you need to have a bachelor's degree. Mm-hmm. So I really needed to have a bachelor's degree. I was working part-time at the Enquirer, but didn't have a degree or anything. So it was so heartbreaking. In this time of year, I'd be working, covering good stories for the Enquirer, and then I'd get word that the interns are coming in from OU and Indiana and Missouri. And as the editor told me once, Rich, I like you, but you'll be back to covering the dog shows now. The fancy interns are in from the big journalism schools. Mm-hmm. So I had to kind of work through that and build a career. I was just scared.
Yeah.
I was around your age and I was scared.
How did you do that? How did you set yourself apart from these Ivy Leaguers and the people that everyone else?
I took assignments that other people didn't want.
Okay.
I built my career that way.
Yeah, we had one of your quotes was that you built your career off of doing everything that other people didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And one of our questions was, were you expecting to see a return on investment from doing that? Or did you just have like a higher pain tolerance, so to speak?
I have higher pain tolerance, but I also, it wasn't so much a plan as it was I was grabbing for handles, just trying to find some traction somewhere, right? And that was the way I did it.
So a little bit of desperation, but that ended up giving you
and I'm not risk averse. So many people are risk averse. So you're sitting in a room with people who are thinking, I don't know, I might not look good if I do that, or is that the way I want to position myself? And I was always, I'll do it. I'll go.
What were these jobs?
Well, when I joined Scripps hired me because they were going to go public.
Okay.
It had been a family-owned company for many years. They decided to be a public company. I was covering Wall Street for the company, so they called and said, hey, would you come inside and help us be a public company? So I did that the first couple of years, and then I started taking on, I worked a strike. Scripps used to own the Pittsburgh newspaper, and I may have told you all, it's hard to imagine how big and influential newspapers were 25, 30 years ago. These are big businesses, hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue in a local market. Mm. These are big. And but the paper in Pittsburgh was in very tough financial shape, and the Teamsters Union really controlled the place. And it had drifted to being unprofitable. So the company went in and said, look, we got to do something here. We're losing money. I don't know how many Teamsters we had, but we didn't need near that many Teamsters. So we proposed over time through attrition, try to get the place under control. And the Teamsters said, we don't see it that way. So we had a very ugly 12-month strike when they shut down the paper in Pittsburgh. And I volunteered to go up and work on that team. Changed my career and changed my life. I'm just, do you know Pittsburgh at all? And
only been there one time.
Yeah, the building's down by the river.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm in there watching trucks being burned. Wow. Bottles and rocks and ball bearings coming through the windows. I'm some places in the windows I crawl underneath the window. I have a cot. I call my wife multiple times, say, I just can't come home this weekend. I do not want to go through the picket lines again. So it was really ugly, but what it taught me, I sat there and I thought, if I'm ever in a position of influence, I'll never let something get to this point, because nobody's winning. Nobody's winning. The city's losing, we're losing, the Teamsters are losing. The other employees who, because of our battle with the Teamsters, they're out. Right. So it was I just thought, I'll never let something get like this. So that made a big difference in my career, the idea of getting ahead of things and addressing problems very quickly. It was the big moment for me. We went to court to try to ask a judge if we could publish, and the Teamsters had the place just absolutely surrounded, along with steel workers and everybody else. And the I mean, legally, we had a very solid case. We should be allowed to publish. Judge just said no. And we asked the lawyers, "Did he say why?" No, he just turned us down. Politics, right, were involved.
Yeah.
But I saw people in the room who were my age now, say late in their 60s or so. They'd put their whole career into this, everything they had, and they're weeping. They're just watching it fall apart. Everything they'd worked for and done was just like collapsing in the streets. It was just such a profound moment for me to learn about how to work ahead, plan ahead, be diligent. Don't let people treat each other like crap.
And that's
because then you know what happens, right?
That's reflected in
yes
that management side of things when you were a leader at Scripps.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, so I worked on that. I worked in Sacramento. We owned cable systems out there. It was a mess. We've had all kinds of stuff. And I took on most of those assignments and enjoyed it.
Wow. That's great. I can't imagine ducking bottles and rocks and
ball bearings.
Wow.
It was really a pretty, you don't see strikes like that now, but it was Pittsburgh in the early 90s, so that environment was still very strong.
Yeah. And you talked about being risk friendly, and we've got a quote from when you spoke at Greg's class, and I just want you to kind of like explain it a little bit. You said risk is an asset.
Yes.
How do you spend it?
Yes.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
Well, just, you sort of think about, again, many people are risk averse, right? So they'll avoid risk at all costs. And, but if you're risk tolerant, risk is like something you carry around with you, and you can spend it and you can invest it.
Yep.
And, so many people are afraid to do that. And I just think it's incredibly valuable.
I think I'm a little bit afraid sometimes. Like, what would your advice be? Like, I've got big aspirations and things I want to do, and accomplish, and a lot of times I think it's like, well, like my risk threshold or tolerance maybe is like a little bit less than like what could really push me over the edge. Like, I've kind of heard that it's like almost a muscle that you work, like, and your tolerance for risk will get bigger and bigger the more you work it. But what's like a little thing that someone like me could do to maybe start to spend it a little bit better?
I think just visualize what failure looks like, and kind of come to grips with, is it really that bad? And maybe that failure is an opportunity. And I think failure is really important. I worry about people who have never failed. We had an executive at Scripps who really wanted another job, a big job. And when we talked, I said, I've never seen you fail. And I just don't know how durable, how sturdy you are. And this person was very offended. And I understand why. You want to see me fail? I said, yeah, well, you will fail at some point. And I could tell that career was being managed to avoid risk and failure. And I said, I just can't put you in that job. It's very high pressure, requires a lot of sturdiness, and I just don't know. I don't know if you can handle it.
Wow. I feel like, this is completely unrelated, but I coach middle school basketball. And part of in practice is, and this is something that I was taught and grateful to be taught by like a trainer when I would just, do some AAU ball in the fall, is if you're not pushing yourself in practice to the point of failure, you're not challenging yourself enough. Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people just get in this headspace of, I need to be successful all the time. And they don't push themselves and challenge themselves to the point of, uncomfort or failure even. And I think it can end up reflecting too. I think that's a big part of it. I know you said, we're pulling out quotes, just you in Greg's class. I mean, that was a phenomenal seminar that you gave. And one of the things you said as well was, adversity is a terrible thing to waste. In the long run, how do you think those early failures, maybe at NKU or earlier in your career, really set you up for success?
Well, most important, it taught me that a lot of stuff is just not as important as you think it is. You get yourself all worked up thinking, I can't mess up, I can't fail. And when it happens, you think, wasn't that bad actually, and people understood and people respected me because I failed, and I stood there and said, I failed. I messed it up, which to me is so powerful. In my career, and I've messed up a lot of stuff. As CEO, I made mistakes. But I was always in front of the board, said, it's my fault. I made the call. We will clean it up. And once or twice I said, and if you need me to put all my stuff in a box and be out of here at 5, I get it. But I think that, eating that responsibility is extremely important. And it's so disarming. I mean, what do people say when you say, I messed up, I'm very sorry, it's my fault, not my people, it's my responsibility. It's really hard to dislike people like that. So
yeah, they're probably getting ready to prepare an argument for when you try to make an excuse, and then you admit what happened, and they're like, oh well.
I despise managers who blame stuff on their people. I just think that's embarrassing. I just think that's awful.
Yeah, one of the things
even if it is their fault, the boss should take responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
accountability.
Leadership starts, or what is it? It's just failure start at the top. It almost is like it's right. Really always like if anything goes wrong, or it always comes back.
Yeah,
at least that's the way I've been taught, and try to take responsibility for things that I'm leading. Is if something goes wrong, the way I see it is if I'm leading the charge on something.
Yes.
That's my problem to deal with.
Yeah, and you build a lot of respect that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think risk and failure are really important.
Yeah, we've actually been talking about it. There's a podcast, Diary of a CEO. You may have.
I haven't seen
one
that.
of the more popular ones. The guy's name is Stephen Bartlett. I think his company is called Flight Media or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know him before listening to his podcast, but he was on another podcast about how he's kind of grown his audience and his media team, and he's got a section of his company that's called the failure team. and the job of these people is to just go and try new social media methods to try to get more engagement, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, do whatever, throw spaghetti at the wall, fail quick and fail often.
That's right. And fail in that case inexpensively.
Yeah. The point is for you to fail as many times as you can so that we can kind of begin to build the patterns and see what the success actually look like. Yeah. But he's like, that's discovered from the non-successes.
That's right.
And so I've kind of just tried to incorporate that we've tried to incorporate that into the podcast with getting started. We ran into a lot of hiccups, and we're still working through getting better and better. And then also just in life in general. And that's such a hard mindset change, because I was always I want straight A's in every class. And blah, blah, blah.
Oh yeah.
And it's now that I'm trying to maybe embrace a little bit more failure, it can be difficult, but also freeing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, good advice. Yeah. Another quote we've got: you can be the best at one thing and have a linear career, or you can have a career and position yourself to increase choice.
Yes.
And kind of want to elaborate on that one as well.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm not saying I was right, but I recognize that, a linear path where you think, look, I'm whatever I am, I'm a accountant or an auditor or a scientist or a photographer. I will be the best at just that, which means that you just got to depend on that there's a trail, right? There's some kind of linear progression that's obvious. I always like to be focused on how many choices do I have. So when I had opportunities to invest in my career, instead of being the best at one thing, I must always try to increase my breadth and my choices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that
makes sense now. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it can go the other way. You can look and say, golly, I wish I could, he or she's the best at that. I wish I could have been that. But to me, that's a very risky path to just say next step, as opposed to just really increasing your choices and your opportunities.
That's the way they chose to spend their risk, I guess.
I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
I think with AI especially, you can never be, oh my gosh, we have no idea where this thing's going.
Yeah.
The more choices you have in your career right now, the better, in my opinion, personally, because you never know where it's going to go or who it's going to take away career-wise.
I'll give you an example. My career, I had thrown my lot in with my friend Ken Lowe, who had the idea for Home and Garden Television, which I thought was brilliant. It's just he had a great idea. And so I jumped in with them, and we're building and going to launch this network, and it required a lot of internal change inside of Scripps, because this thing's going to be pretty big, and then other people are going to have to subsidize it while we build it, all that kind of stuff. Right in the middle of that, the company offered me an opportunity. They wanted me to go get an MBA because I'd come out of kind of finance and investor work, and so I think the company thought this looks like a great opportunity for him. We'll pay for his master's degree at Harvard or Dartmouth or Stanford or someplace like that.
Wow.
And I thought, yeah, but I got to take myself out of this entrepreneur business we're building. Mm-hmm. I have to step out of it for, a year and a half or more. And I just thought and said to my bosses, I don't want to. I appreciate the offer, and it's incredibly generous, but I don't want to leave this right now. So I chose to stay with my friends and the entrepreneurs and build a business inside of Scripps. I kind of, sometimes I think I would have enjoyed an MBA, but
looks like it doesn't matter.
I was going to say, what do you think is the value these days in graduate school, seeing as you never went to one?
Yeah, well, my very well-developed opinion is that people should not go straight from undergrad to grad school. You got to go do something, bump around a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, boy, the world looks different 18, 24 months when you're working.
Mm-hmm.
Then my oldest son graduated right in the middle of the financial crisis in 2009.
Oh, boy.
He went to Vandy. Most of his friends went straight to grad school. Just thought, well, especially now, there are no jobs. I'll just go straight to grad school. When I talked to Luke, and I said, if you're asking me, I wouldn't do it. So he jumped in with some entrepreneurs who were creating a grocery delivery business and spent almost 5 years. He's really different for that experience. And well, he's now talks about going to grad school some now. But I don't know if he will or not. And I don't think it would have changed this.
How much older is he now than what?
20 years.
It's been 20 years.
Yeah. So he graduated from Vandy in 2009.
You've always got time.
Yeah. But on campuses, sometimes when I get that question in public and I tell students I don't think I'd go straight to grad school, you can see some faculty members and others going, oh, geez, why do you say that? But I think it's right. I'd meander a little bit.
Yeah, that was kind of my mindset. I had opened like a law school application just to kind of see like what would happen. I have an interest in it, but not enough to commit to that. And I just thought what it seems like the natural transition at this phase of my life is to go, maybe get beat by Big Four a little bit and kind of see what I'm made of. And then once you say, oh, I'm really passionate about this thing, then invest the time and the money into that more expensive but more niche graduate degree to narrow in. So I think without consciously thinking about your quote, I believe I've maybe gone to increasing the choices a little bit naturally, kind of as an aversion to risk. I don't I feel like more having more choices, as opposed to one thing that I'm dedicated to has given me kind of an umbrella on which to stand.
How do you think that view on your career of I like to have these choices to make across the way? Do you think that allowed you to be a successful executive? Do you think it played a part in it being so well-rounded?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I'm I guess the cliche is, a jack of all trades. And that really has been my career. I'm not the best at anything.
Yep.
I guess I probably need to admit that.
Yeah.
There's nothing I'm the best at.
CEO's a pretty well-rounded position, though. You've got to really know all facets of what's going on, so it makes sense.
Yeah, so what I brought CEO, I came out of the business, and I think CEOs who have actually worked in product are, have a different lens than CEOs that are just traveling CEOs who just move from company to company, like mercenary CEOs, really. Yeah. But I think, I had a passion for the product. That made a big difference. I had a passion for building value. I was influenced early on when I was covering Wall Street by, big investors, very well-known investors who would, get in front of groups and they would, say, now remember really what you're doing is, or I'm handing you my wallet. That's what an investor used to say to a company. I'm handing you my wallet. I can't get it back. You're now holding my wallet, and I just trust that you'll give it back to me at some point, and it'll have more money in it. And so I love that level of trust that investors have, and that idea that we build value and help them meet their financial goals. I like that. I'm a capitalist. I'm a free market guy. So
when you say, because I know you mentioned this in Greg's class, you mentioned mercenary, and I think you talked about the difference between a leader, a mercenary, and maybe there was
a manager.
And manager. There was one more category. Could you distinguish those three different ones and maybe the types of people that fall into each category?
Yeah, and I usually talk about that, saying, do you want to be a leader? Do you want to be a leader, or would you rather be a manager, somebody who keeps the trains running on time and the product's delivered on time? Or you might think of it in this world as a chief operating officer versus a CEO. So they're incredibly valuable. Somebody's got to run the machine every day. Do you want to be that, or do you want to be a leader? To me, a leader is a step up. It's a servant role. It's the ultimate accountability. It's a creative role, more about strategy, but it requires leadership. It means during tough and difficult times, you got to lead.
Yeah,
you got to take care of the folks best you can. And then the other just mercenaries, people who are completely indifferent to where they work, what they do, what the company does. It's just a good job. It pays well. I'm going to be able to buy the boat. I'm going to be able to do whatever. I go anywhere for more money for the most part. So I just often say to people, which one do you want to be? There's nothing wrong with mercenaries. They're needed at times. Managers are incredibly important, but do you really want to be a leader? Are you willing to put the needs of others before your own? That to me is the huge distinction. Mercenaries don't do that. Managers aren't really asked to do that. It's the leaders who have to put the needs of others before their own.
It reminds me of SIGEP, like President Ops.
Yeah, I was Ops.
Yeah. So he would have been like our COO. And then I served as president, not at the same time.
Yeah,
would have been cool to do that.
Yeah, it would have been cool.
At different times. So I was like kind of the vision setter, had to take on the accountability, and he was the one where it's like, we got this meeting, you got to have these deadlines hit. So we got to see those different aspects. I don't know who a mercenary would be in the context of that.
I'm not sure. In that organization, I think at least when we were there, everyone wanted to be there, and it's also it's not a business, but there's definitely a need for one or the other. I think it's been a particularly the COO role has always come very easy to me, is like being organized, being the manager, but one of the challenges that I've had is how do you take that and transform yourself into a leader with the skills that you already have as a manager? Do you have any advice there?
To me, it's the skill sets are pretty different. A leader has to get up every morning and say, where are we going? How do we get from point A to point B? How do you set a vision and unfortunately make a lot of people uncomfortable. Leaders make them, at least half the people in their organization uncomfortable, because you're talking about change and doing things new, and a lot of people just think, could you just leave it alone? Why do we have to change stuff all the time? And that's the job of the leader to lead that process. But then when things get complicated, the leaders really have to step up. I worked through 3 big crisis periods in my career. The first was 9/11, which you all don't remember, right?
We weren't born.
I was born after.
Yeah,
right.
We were born just after in 2002.
Yeah, and it sort of went away quick, but it's hard to imagine what it was like an attack on U.S. soil. Businesses just stopped. No planes were flying, and people were scared to death. Employees were scared to death. I was getting calls from employees across the country saying, our manager won't let us close our building. We're all, we want to go home. We're scared. I said, well, we're in the news business, so somebody ain't going home.
Got to cover this.
Yeah. Right. So we told anybody who is really scared, go on home. But I had to talk to people and say, you're in a story-and-a-half building in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I don't think they're coming for you.
Right.
So.
It's hard to know that. Yeah,
you don't know, right?
Hysteria at the time.
Yeah, and we took some of our channels off the air instantly that morning. And then next was the financial crisis in 2008 and 2009, which was incredibly scary, and it got cured quick, but I think people don't realize just how close we were to a collapse of the financial system. I mean, it was very. So I'm sitting at Scripps. We don't have a lot of debt, but you're calling banks and they don't answer their phones. Mm-hmm. They're out of business, and they handle your cash flow. And it was really trying to work through that, cutting everybody's pay, and restructuring a pension and all that kind of stuff. And I'd walk through our buildings and people would hug me and say, Rich, tell me it's going to be okay. I said, I can't promise you it's going to be okay. I don't know. But I think, leaders have to, at those moments, you just got to go, right? It's your job. And then COVID, and I was chairman for COVID, and the new team, Adam Simpson's my successor. He's fabulous. But I got them all on the phone. I said, you are a blessed generation of leaders. You're called. This is a big mess, and you're called to lead. And it's, leadership's a calling. It's not a privilege. It's a calling, and you guys have been called. And someone went, "Oh, boy, thanks a lot." That's certainly. I said, "No, I mean it. You've been called to this moment." So that's. So I think that's what leaders have to do.
It seems
sometimes you get a lot of credit. Other times you got to eat it.
Thankless job.
Yeah. I believe that.
I tell people being a CEO of a public company is like sleeping, sitting up all the time. You just never goes away. It's just 24/7. You just got to accept that.
It's a lifestyle. Yeah. I got to briefly, I kind of felt like that. Like I was wearing that veil for a year where it was like I'd be in the gym, and full context, we had gone through some issues, and then we had both kind of gotten on exec like as we were coming back. So he did like a transition period, and then I served this year after that, and then he came back on to kind of build this pipeline because we were some of the few guys that had stuck around. And I just remember I'd finally get into the gym at like 8:30 at night after being in class and meetings and whatever, and there'd be a call, and it's like, you got to talk to this guy. His parents are saying this, and it's like, oh my gosh, it never ends. It feels like you're playing this role, but it's your life.
Yeah.
The downside, and I think I've talked about it in class, I canceled vacations. I looked at my kids and said, I got to go. We're somewhere on vacations. I got to leave. So you have to accept that, the other side of it. I think that's harder for your generation, where work-life balance.
Yep.
You all really have, I think, created a better work-life balance environment than the one where I grew up in.
When did you realize that you were a leader? Because I'm just thinking about this whole, like going from, being a janitor, having trouble with school, and eventually, like, I think you had to kind of realize, like, oh, I have this skill set. Like, what was that moment?
I don't know. I still feel today like I'm glad they didn't catch me. So, no, I never negotiated for pay. I took what they offered me, and I was determined to demonstrate I was worth more than that. I was always terrified that there was a meeting going on and people were saying, "Yeah, we like him, but for what we pay him, is he really worth that?" That scares the crap out of me.
That's actually so funny. Before you arrived, probably 5 minutes before you arrived, we were just talking about that of like, we always just feel like when someone emails us, that doesn't usually email us. I was like, it's our fault. What did we do wrong? Like, we've got to prove our worth and jump on whatever we can. And, you know, like in the back of our mind, we're like, don't get fired. Don't get fired. Like,
that's right.
Yeah. And that's just, it's funny that you said that. It's
probably the biggest moment. I mean, we had done well we were building these cable networks, and we bought and built Food Network, and you know, we had done all this stuff and really had remodeled the company pretty dramatically. And then the board came to me and Ken Lowe, who was my predecessor, and said, we'd like you guys to run the company. And we were very young and inexperienced. And I think that was the moment when I thought, oh my gosh, somebody thinks I can do this. It was a real turning point.
How big of an impact, I mean, you said it was a turning point, but like, how big of an impact in anyone's life do you think that just believing in someone really has?
Well, depending on which end of it you're on, right?
Right.
I think that's, you know, when that feeling that people trust you, that's fabulous. Mm-hmm. And then when you have that sort of feeling like, you know what, they don't trust me. That's just so horrible.
Yeah.
It's just so hard to work through when you think, I could see it on their faces. They don't think I can do it. So we had a long time director on our board, and I worked on this deal during the financial crisis. We used to own the Peanuts characters. Scripps owned Peanuts for years, and we owned Garfield, and it was sort of
some of my favorites.
Dilbert. And you've ever seen Dilbert? We owned all those. But you know, those businesses are not what they used to be. Licensing is very different, and you know, the comic world's, you know, fragmented and has exploded. But I thought, you know, this is a business it's really an appendage, and I'd really like to put more than $100 million into our pension fund during the financial crisis to shore it up. So I, you know, said to the board, I'd like to sell Peanuts, and I think there's some good buyers, and we ended up selling it at an incredible price. And one of our longtime directors said, hey, good job, Rich. I didn't give you a chance in hell of pulling that off. Wow.
Did that happen to line up with when Kings Island put like the Planet Snoopy? Like, would that have
been was before that, probably.
Okay. Because I felt like that might have been like a change of ownership or something. I don't know.
Might have been. What year would have that been?
We would have been young, but it was Nickelodeon themed.
Oh, sure.
And then probably like 2011 or something. I want to say 2011.
That might have been, because we sold Peanuts in 2009.
When did Kings Island make it?
Yeah, they definitely changed like whoever partnered with Kings Island.
Yeah,
because it was all Nicktoons.
2010, April 17th.
Yeah, it was right in there.
Yeah.
So they did a deal with them.
I just remember, like, I'm like, why are they changing it? The Avatar ride.
Yeah. I remember it.
To Surf Club.
I do remember that now, the Avatar ride. Wow.
Yeah.
And it was the Scooby-Doo. This is such a tangent, but
the
Scooby-Doo Haunted Mansion, and then they just went, like, it's like, it's Boo Blasters. It's like an
unbranded. Yeah, it was Boo Blasters.
And we love the Scooby-Doo ride.
I loved that.
Anyway, I didn't know that you all owned Peanuts.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was fun.
So it seems to me like we talked about manager, leader, and a lot of times the leader's operating in the gray. They're not operating in the black and white. And one of the quotes, you said it was your favorite quote, or one of them, it was by John Locke, that states, in the greatest part of our concernment, God has afforded us only twilight.
I know. I love that.
It is a great quote. I know. It's so awesome.
Hear, like, what does that mean to you?
Well, that almost everything is gray.
Okay.
And I feel sorry for people who just demand things to be black and white, or just can't accept that more than one thing can be true at the same time. You know, and I think that's a terrible weakness. If that's your proclivity to think, nope, black and white, you know, because everything's just very gray, especially, you know, in a leader's position.
Yeah.
And I love that. That just means there's a chaotic environment and there's opportunity going to squirt out of it, and you just got to be hanging around the hoop, you know, and looking for that opportunity to grab it out of the chaos and the gray. And so I think I can't imagine a good leader being somebody who's just very black and white, just can't get their head around that multiple things can be true all at the same time. That's just the way the world is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you kind of answered it. It was like, how do you master operating in that environment? But it seems to me like
you got to embrace it.
Yeah.
Yep. Being comfortable with not knowing.
And know that it's a competitive advantage because there are just too many people whose heads are spinning. They just can't deal with it. And you're sitting in the corner watching them just spin and go crazy, right? You're just let them expend all their energy and get it out, get it over with, and enjoy the gray and the uncertainty. And
smile through it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you took on the leadership and you were interested in journalism, did you ever see yourself like becoming more a part of the business, operational and leadership side of things, or did you just want to be a reporter? Like, how did that career kind of like evolve? Was that just taking advantage of
I loved being a reporter. I loved the core of the business. But me wanting to add choices, so I was really kind of the peak of my career. I'm on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. I'm doing interviews with CNBC and the others, and thinking, wow, I'm something. I've made it. But then when they called and said, would you like to come inside and help us be a bubble company? I looked, well, Scripps is a big company.
Okay.
And can I be a journalist forever? Or again, do I want to be just the best at one thing? And I just saw that. I thought, that's a big organization. This looks like a good way in, and I'll just, work it from there.
So you were asked, you didn't like kind of try to get into that side of things?
No, I got a call, and it was all very hush hush because they were going to go public, which hadn't been disclosed.
Okay.
And I took a pay cut to do it.
Really?
My family thought, you're doing the right thing? I mean, I said, yeah, I think so, because it's just the opportunities look so much broader. So that was I did that, and then I had that same passion when my friend had the idea for a cable network. I thought, this is really good, and how do I apply my skills? A lot of risk involved with that.
And what did that become?
Well, that became Home and Garden Television.
HGTV.
Yeah. Really created right down the street at 312 Walnut.
Pretty cool.
That's sweet.
But the guy who, my dear friend Ken Lowe, he's one of those, and you've been around him, or maybe you are now, people who can see around the corner a little bit. He was, I don't know if I told you all before, but he was talking, he's telling us about a cable network about homes and gardens. I thought, okay, I understand that 24/7 programming. And then he said, we'll tell people when to change their furnace filters. I thought, what in the heck are you talking about? How is a cable network going to tell people when to change their furnace filters? He was envisioning smart homes and connectivity.
Oh.
And today, your coffee maker, your refrigerator, everything's connected, right? Connected. He was seeing that and saying, we'll build that infrastructure that it gives people
interactive.
Yeah, which at the time, this is 90.
Yeah, that's unheard of.
So this is very, very, very different at the time. Wow. But he could see the niching of television. Television used to be very general. NBC carried sitcoms, sports, everything, right? And then cable came along. Cable was really built as an antenna service because, signal was bad in a lot of places, so they started running cable to improve. And then about 10 or 15 years in, people went, well, wait a minute, we could do dedicated channels. And then CNN, ESPN, HGTV, Food Network, Lifetime, then they all came along after that.
Okay.
So that was and we did that, and we launched and bought other businesses in other parts of the world, and we just kind of kept going. We kept playing another hand, right? So taking risks, feeling like we were doing the right thing.
What does it look like to create a channel? Like, how do you have to go pitch that to someone?
Well, first
pick it up.
We had to pitch to our board of directors and ask for money.
Yeah,
and they bought it. They weren't real familiar with cable networks at the time, so we used MTV. We showed them how MTV works.
Yeah.
And one of our directors said, so you're telling me there's this cable channel with a show called Beavis and Butthead that makes more money than like 10 TV stations. We said, yes, that's true.
Oh, R.I.P. MTV this year, right? I think it just went on. Or was it this year or last year?
Did they go off?
MTV's.
Yeah. I know there's still MTV Studios. I see some shows they produce, but
the channel aired the last thing it aired, I think, was Video Killed the Radio Star, which was the first music video they ever aired.
Yes.
I believe that was earlier this year.
Yeah, they shut down as of December 31st, 2025. Paramount Global shut down several of its dedicated 24-hour music channels.
Yeah.
To focus on streaming.
But we just kept, and again, I have two very close friends. I never had a mentor. I didn't grow up in that kind of business environment. Mm-hmm. But I had close friends, and we sort of planned our careers together. And these two guys convinced me twice not to leave. I thought, I don't know, I feel kind of dead end. I'm not sure what to do. And they said, stay. I think they're going to give us good opportunities. And it turned out they did.
Did you always feel like you were, maybe not at that moment, but like when you speak about someone convincing you to kind of stay, it kind of feels like your career is working towards something like bigger, and you can kind of like maybe feel that?
Yeah.
Like, did you always feel like you were building something or grabbing stories to contribute to something?
Yes, but I was also at the same time thinking, what's my downside? I think I can feed my family now. I think I've reached cruising altitude in my career, so I'm not too worried about it. Like I say, grew up in a lower middle class family, thinking, as long as I'm one step ahead of that, maybe I guess I'm a success. So I didn't really. I just said I didn't worry about the downside too much. I definitely didn't worry about the downside appearance-wise. I thought that just didn't bother me if I failed and lost my job. Wow, I'll survive that.
Most people would not sit across this table and say something like that. I would say
in our business, a lot of people have been fired. I've been fired, so it
didn't really bother you.
Not that much.
It's just interesting. Psychologically very interesting. Yeah.
Like it's psychologically pretty healthy.
Yeah, because I thought I can.
It's inspiring. Yeah,
it is.
We'll be okay. So I wasn't that worried about it. So it was sort of all gravy to me, past a certain point. So I had the opportunity later in my career. I purposely would not take raises, and the last several years I worked, I think I gave away pretty much most of what I made, because I sort of felt like, okay, we're here, we're okay. I got a nut built up. There's no reason to be greedy. I was afraid of being greedy, thinking God will strike me down. I'm greedy, so
that's true. You can't take it with you. Yeah.
That is inspiring. Yeah, is that like, what do you define success as in your life or in your terms?
Well, to me, and I think I told the class, to me, there are many definitions of success, and I really built that into my sons. They had to put up with living with a CEO dad. And I look back, and it is a little hard. If you're growing up in town and everybody knows your father, and you hear that all the time. I think that's pretty hard. So I told both of them at about age 15, I said, feel no pressure to repeat the pattern of your parents' lives. Define success however you want to. And I told them, I said, if you want to live in a box under a bridge, if you do that by choice, I'll be supportive.
Wow. If
you end up there because you didn't manage choices, I won't be so happy.
Right.
Understood.
So, so to me, there's just so many definitions of success. I just can't, and
it's gray, like we've been talking about.
And most of them are, and in real human terms, they're more successful than somebody who runs a company, right? People who do real things and save people's lives, and to me, that incredible success.
What, just like another question back, because you mentioned that you've met most presidents since, would you say Carter? Like, is there a president or a person that you kind of interviewed it or did a piece on that made like a very lasting impression? And kind of like, what was that?
Let's see. Gosh, so many people. What I really learned from meeting and initially covering presidents and stuff like that was, a lot of leaders, CEOs, politicians, all kinds of people. A lot of them are fairly normal, and they're scared.
Really?
They're just like everybody else. They go home at night and go, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, how do I get out of this? And how do I get us out of this?"
Yeah.
But especially interviewing CEOs when I was a reporter, over time you get to know them and build a relationship, and they're open with you, and you just realize that it's either circumstances or people take chances, but leaders in a lot of ways are not that different than other people working in the company or in the organization.
Did you find any common threads among the CEOs that you interviewed?
Well, definitely risk tolerance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hard work.
Yeah.
I worked very hard. My wife and I both, we had to build our careers in the media business. So we got out of school. I think I mentioned I worked the night I graduated, walked the stage at NKU, went to work. I've been offered a job. I wasn't going to turn it down.
Right.
But we both, the first 6-7 years we were married, we rarely had the same days off. Took almost no vacations because schedules wouldn't match up. I traveled quite a bit. So in a lot of ways, I look at it like I guess some people would say, well, did you sacrifice 5 to 10 years, of your young life? Did you just work yourself constantly? And I don't feel like I sacrificed, but yeah, I worked a lot, worked really hard. I had to outwork some people with some of the big egos, right? I had to outwork them.
How were you, if you have any advice to anyone maybe in the Big Four, investment banking, in their young careers that are, might have long hours at times and especially in their later 20s get married, and it sounds like you had, that same thing where your wife and you just didn't have the same days off, you weren't taking vacations. What was the most important thing to keep those relationships healthy?
Well, one, recognize what we're doing and make sure we agree. We definitely, Lisa and I both agreed on what we were doing. That makes a big difference. I think young people need to make choices. Definitely things starting with, we didn't do the trip to Europe after we graduated. I hear people talking about all the time. No, I just think we thought we chose this profession, and in order to excel at it or do well, we've almost got to make sacrifices early on, to build our equity in our careers. So I don't know. I'm so perplexed when I talk to young people who say, I'd rather have more balance. I don't want to trade away so much of my life for a job. And, I want to say I'm not sure unless you work really hard, you're going to achieve that. So you may have to make some trade-offs. But I always feel like I'm giving young people bad advice, like I'm saying, ignore your kids. But I think it's just the reality. You got to work.
I also
work hard.
I also think that it sounds like you found a lot of passion in what you were doing.
Yeah.
And I think that there might be a little bit of a crisis right now. Well, first of all, there aren't that many jobs to go around.
Right.
So I think some people are taking ones that maybe are like a mismatch. And so they want balance because they're really not getting a lot out of work to some extent.
Right. No, that's true.
So that's just kind of what I've maybe diagnosed.
I
And
think
then
that's
other people
right.
are like, I'm going to put in my 2 to 3 years at Goldman Sachs and work a bunch of hours so then I can go have freedom in my later 20s. So there's a bunch of different dynamics and kind of archetypes of people, but I do think a lot of it is maybe people feeling underappreciated and not having the passion for what they do to some extent.
I struggle a little with I talk to younger employees about being underappreciated. I think, well, have you proven yourself to be appreciated?
Right.
Good point.
That doesn't mean that some manager has to dare you to be appreciated, but still, I mean, have you raised your head above the crowd? You know, because there's risk in that, right? Stick your head up above the crowd, sometimes it gets whacked off.
Yeah.
But I really, I never know what to tell young people these days. I love my family. Through those years, like I never played golf. I didn't do things on weekends. I didn't do guy stuff. I worked and spent time with my family.
Was that because you loved like what the mission of your work?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, golly, what a blessed opportunity to work in that business where you meet so many interesting people and do these really interesting things. And
I think I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Another perspective, a common theme I've heard you talk about that I think is a little bit lackluster in our generation is just the idea of gratitude. And that you were thankful to even get a degree. You were thankful to get that first job. You were thankful to get the opportunities that were given to you. And I think that changes a lot of it changed your perspective in the present, and it changes your perspective now on everything. And I think there's a lot of people that are so cynical and they don't recognize the things that they just take for granted.
I think that's true. I mean, you see it in philanthropy. Your generation is less generous.
Wow.
I didn't even know that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, do some reading on, trends in philanthropy. It's very, very different in your generation.
Huh.
You see it there. I don't know. I think this is a very different work environment, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
I almost try not to give young people advice. I don't know what to say.
You got good advice.
No, you do.
I don't know.
Again, like we said, like this is all great. Like that, I think like if you are coming out of college with a family and a great job that you love, it's like you pour everything into that. But there's also maybe some people where it's like maybe they would benefit themselves from making some changes to like increase their opportunity, or by having some balance that might open up an opportunity. Right. Like there really is no prescription, but I think like your perspective and the way it worked for you is really cool.
Yeah, but it's probably it's not fair for me because it just so happens I did something I loved. I worked for a bunch of companies, but spent most of my time at Scripps. I worked for a great, purpose, mission-driven company. I have incredible friends I worked with for more than 30 years.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm just fortunate or blessed. Maybe it's not something I made. I just fell into it maybe.
Well, I think it's probably both.
Yeah.
And, people run their own race. But one thing that I've gathered, at least from, the few successful people I've, gotten the chance to interview and talk with, is they always grinded at some point.
Yeah.
Some of them might have grinded in their 40s. Some of them might have grinded in their 30s. Some of them might have grinded in their 20s. But they all had periods of, the fruits of their labor, but they had the periods of their labor.
Yeah. Right.
And
no, I think that's
not going to go away. The people that show up and show out will continue to rise to the top, and the people that don't won't.
Mm-hmm. And I think people want to work towards something. I think that it's just sometimes it's hard to know what that is. Like I read a book semi-recently about like the oldest people in the world, and it's like the people in Okinawa.
Yeah.
And they all work and garden and like contribute to the community
until
they're 105 years old. They've always got a job to do. Like I think as humans, like we want to contribute, but
I think that's
I think that it's not always clear. Maybe like how disconnected things can be. Like what we're actually contributing. Maybe I don't know.
I think it's. I've thought a lot about that. I just turned 70, and my parents and grandparents grew up very poor, depression, and so I watched them later in life. They really valued simple things.
Mm-hmm.
The farmers, plants, craftsmanship. And as I've gotten older, I've thought, I wish I could somehow make a turn and really appreciate really simple, good things. Because I struggle with that.
I feel like this does not help.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just, after what they went through, just the simplicity of a corn crop. I really want that. really want to have that appreciation for simple things that I've not done well with so far.
Neither have I. So
I've picked up a new hobby, which is hunting for the first time ever. I've always liked animals. I love animals, and I used to be like a little bit against killing them, but I'm also like a conservationist, and that's part of it.
Yeah, sure.
But my uncle, who's now aging, has asked me for years and years, like, come out, go turkey hunting. I know you'll like it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's an early morning on a weekend. I don't want to do that. But finally I did it. And like, honestly, the majority of it is like an effort to kind of get away from screens. I turkey season ended yesterday. I did not kill one, but I was out there a couple times. You know, we get up at 5:40. We're out there by 6:20, and then we stay until noon, and you're just listening or watching.
Oh, I do the same. I love it.
It's tough. Do you go hunting?
Yeah, I hunt and fish, paddle a canoe.
Yeah,
I don't play golf or anything like that.
But it's a lot just to get away from some of the noise a little bit.
Yeah,
we own 250 acres about 25 miles south of here.
Wow.
You know, and just to walk through there, you know, among giant oak trees who have been there for a long time and don't care about all the crap.
No.
Just don't care at all. You know, that really helps me a lot to be in that kind of environment.
Did you get a turkey this year?
Did not. I didn't have a chance to get out. I've been scary busy, but a bunch of them were shot on our place. So.
There you go.
Have you ever seen the old bumper sticker? I saw it in a parking lot once. I love animals. They're delicious.
No, I haven't seen that.
That's funny.
That is good.
In today's environment, that's a bumper sticker that could get your tires flattened probably. Or
suck car keyed, or that's the world we live in, I guess.
You gotta eat meat. It's good.
Yeah, I just think it's funny as I've gotten older. My dad, as a teenager, I loved rolling the windows down. And whenever I was in the driver's seat and I rolled the window, my dad hated it. He's like, roll the windows back up. He's like, why you got to listen to music super loud and blast it and all this stuff? And I find myself as I'm getting older and out of college, and I love walking the golf course without any speaker. Yeah. And just listening to the birds and hearing the sound of the iron or the driver smack the golf ball. Yeah. And I stopped rolling the windows up on the highway. I listened to my music a little bit quieter. I'm like, wait a minute. I can kind of see what's going on here. And maybe in 40, 30 years, I'll be just like my dad was. And my son's going to be trying to listen to all the noise and, just as you get older, finding the joy in the simple things and in the silence, because there's so little of it that goes around as you grow older and get busier.
I used to, even when I was CEO, sometimes I would make up some excuse and I'd get in my truck, drive out to my grandparents' farm. And just, on a warm August morning when there's a lot of dew, and I'd, pull up next to a hayfield and step out, the smell, and that real yellow sun on that hay and that wet smell of the hay.
Smell the barn.
I can smell it now, yeah.
That would really help me kind of get back focused and
it's so refreshing.
Go walk the fields a little bit.
Yeah.
Talk to my grandpa.
Good stuff. I think Greg wanted us to ask one question, and we can kind of close this thing out. It's been about almost an hour and a half.
Oh,
yeah.
But he was asking, and I guess we'll put this out there for the world to see, but what kind of things do you think that we could improve upon or maybe execute to like keep getting Tribe, this podcast, like out there? I don't know, like where you think like we could differentiate ourselves or kind of channels we can deliver in.
Well, I think you said the most important thing. How are we different? Because it's you're just in a sea of podcasts right now,
right?
And Scripps, we owned a little podcast company. It was really interesting to try to convince people that 50,000 downloads is not that many. In the media world, that's a pretty small footprint.
Sure.
Well, it depends on what your aspirations are. Depends on
more than 6 views.
But do you?
We got 130 two videos ago.
Are you looking for commercial success or influence, or what do you? Where do you?
I guess
be?
like the goal would be to some extent to have this somewhat like be able to continue to grow itself, like where we can maybe like, I don't know how much money we would make, but at least like make it so like we feel like it's growing and we're striving towards it and like continue to grow because we just love working on it.
Right.
But flatlining, at the onset, well, I would say like we really just haven't even broken through anything yet.
Yeah.
I feel like we want to maybe like see some just energy or maneuver so that we can provide something to people that they do listen to and watch.
Yeah, you got to find what your gig is, right? What if you think about like Joe Rogan or Mark Maron, who's just ceasing his I don't know if you ever Mark Maron was one of the early huge podcasters. Yeah. WTF is his podcast, and his was just his. He's very neurotic, and just his touch with people was so good.
Yeah,
but I think you just have to decide what you kind of want to be, and you got to find some way to cut through. So maybe it's, if you're going to do it this way, find people that are maybe a little bit in the news cycle, who maybe they're a part of some story that everybody's talking about, but nobody knows they're part of it, or nobody realized what their part is. So there's sort of an unveiling, maybe a little bit.
That's a good
Not
idea.
a gotcha, but just somebody who's in the middle of something that people don't realize they are, and they might bring some unique or different kind of perspective.
Underrated.
What do you think about balancing like more general versus more narrow? Like there's some podcasts that I think are very, very niche.
Yeah.
And then there's some where it's like Joe Rogan will bring on lots of different people. Chris Williamson, Modern Wisdom.
Yeah.
Diary of CEO. He'll have like number one sleep expert, and then he'll have like Iran war expert.
Right.
CIA whistleblower.
That's why. Do you listen to Lex Friedman?
Yes.
Yeah. 2 or 3 hours sometimes.
Yeah.
But they're so good.
They are. Yep. He'll have like he had like the Rockstar Games creator, like Grand Theft Auto, and he'll have like a paleontologist.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Like just the different.
Yeah, I guess that's the top of the heap when you're a variety show.
Yeah.
I guess.
I wonder.
I guess that's the question. Do you be a variety show, or do you have a?
I think that's what we want a little bit.
Yeah, we'd like to eventually become that, but I think we're struggling to, like, I think Truman a couple of episodes ago had a really good, once he said he focused in, he started to find progress, and maybe there's just this tunnel that you have to get through before you do that.
Right now it might just be.
We're just figuring it out.
Kind of seeing like what.
We're also kind of seeing what we enjoy talking about too.
Yeah.
It's also
and
for
figuring
fun.
it out.
Like we
just like doing it.
I mean, do you see yourselves as creating a window for younger people who are entering their career phase?
Yeah, I guess this is kind of for, college men into young mid-20s mostly, and interested in like deepening their faith, interested in what it takes to be a leader, interested in how to kind of like not fall into the traps of media. Like we talked to a psychology professor, marketing and psychology professor about like the rise of AI and like how that looks in terms of like learning. So yeah, we're really just trying to apply different aspects of the world through us as like the vessel, and then give them to an audience around our age that can kind of use them and maybe apply them.
Yeah, well, that's if you kind of have a target audience in mind, that helps.
I would say that would be the main. That's like our main narrowing factor would be.
Yeah, and you're not really 18-year-olds entering college. You're really you're talking about people who are sitting around saying, "But what's it all mean? I'm getting ready to graduate.
Yeah,
what's going to happen next?"
Probably like 21 to 25.
Yeah, if we really narrowed it down, those are the people we're targeting.
Yeah, I think that is there a lot out there that addresses that market? It doesn't seem like
I don't
it.
know,
Or maybe at 70, I don't listen to.
It'd be interesting to see what number of that, like what the percentage of podcast listeners come from that age group as well. Because I listen to podcasts way more frequently when I'm at like an internship or working full time.
Yeah.
It's part of my like getting my kind of repetitive tasks done. Like it's like, okay, listen to podcasts. And then it becomes just routine, and I'll listen to them in the car and everywhere.
Right.
But like when I was in college, I was just like, you're always running around doing something, and then music in the gym. And so I would almost completely fall out of the loop.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, if everyone makes it part of their routine.
I remember thinking generationally, when I was CEO, I traveled 120, 30 nights a year, several days a week, all the time on planes.
Wow.
And I noticed, I've read on planes for years, and that closed off environment where you get to actually get to read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you start looking around, and younger people are all got the buds.
Yep.
They're listening to podcasts, right? They're not reading as much.
I reignited my love for reading recently, and it was thanks to you, because you were putting me on the audiobook train, and you know, in the busy world, I
gave him a hack.
Yeah, the only time that you like I really have alone to myself that I can like focus or hone in on something is in the car or going on a walk. Even sometimes I'll listen like on the treadmill, but I've been getting into these audiobooks recently, some fiction, some nonfiction, and it's a good time. I forgot how much I loved reading, and recently I did Stephen King's The Running Man just because the movie just came out, and I was like,
oh, is it good?
Yeah, I mean, I read the book and then watched the movie, and I was like, you know what? I love that I just realized that the book is so much better than the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, I think when I visit a class, I don't read business books very much. I read a lot of fiction and nonfiction, and that storytelling and, you know, the unrolling of a complex story, I think is really great.
It's interesting because like my hack was my goal was, this is funny that everything kind of circles back on itself. We had a podcast guest who was one of our friends who lost 100 pounds.
Wow.
And some of that was because he dedicated, like, every day he wanted to walk 20,000 steps. And so my New Year's resolution was to walk like about 10